Hi, my name is Robin Frid, professional horseman from Denton, Texas, and I'm here today with Charlie Cole, the trainer of the world champion 2019 Adequan Select horsemanship rider, Dan Yeager.
I'm Charlie Cole from Pilot Point, Texas, and I've been coaching Dan Yeager for several years now, probably 6, 7 years now. So Dan started the pattern started with the forward walk for, I believe it said 2 horse lengths, and then he needed to move into an extended trot. I think it was about 3/4 of the way down the arena. It was definitely past the center marker, and then a stop and 1.5 turns to the left. And then it was a lope out on a left lead, building into an extended lope down around the bottom of the arena. And there was a pretty tight corner here to come across the diagonal, continuing his extended lope, now collecting and changing leads in the center, and building back into an extended right lead lope across the top of the arena, coming down through the middle of the arena and collecting again, and then stopping in the center of the arena, performing a 360 to the right, and then backing up 2 horse lengths, moving into a jog, and then moving that into an extended trot and finishing even with the start cone. And the pattern was complete.
So, Charlie, most of us were able to have these patterns about a week before the Select World Show. Did you guys look at these patterns at home? Did you practice them at home? Were there certain things that you were concerned about at all?
We for sure practiced the pattern at home. Most of the maneuvers, matter of fact, all the maneuvers that were in this pattern are things we practiced all year long. So it wasn't, none of these maneuvers were unfamiliar to us. It was putting all the maneuvers together and putting the whole pattern together. We knew what our strengths were. I knew what Dan's horse's weaknesses were, and we practiced the parts, and then we put it all together at home. So when we got to the Select World, we kind of knew what we had and what we were going to do.
So Dan, obviously he looks like he has a pretty good connection with his horse. Is it fair to say this is not something that you just prepped the horse for him and he jumped on and did his pattern? I mean, he really looked to have a nice connection. Does he ride at home often?
Yeah, Dan, and all of my riders, I want them all to learn how to ride their horse and know their horse and, just be familiar with their horse. So Dan rides in the busy season. He's riding a couple times a week. Otherwise he rides almost at least once a week. I do ride his horse. We keep his horse tuned for him. But when Dan is around, he rides his horse, and he does most of the schooling himself. And there might be a little fine tuning that I'll do, but he has a really good connection with that horse.
And correct me if I'm wrong. This horse is not young. It's over 5 years old, but it's a younger pattern horse. And you said that you have some, you knew the horse's faults. Where are this horse's weak points that you would focus on in a tougher pattern like this, especially being a little bit of a younger horse at top level competition?
For sure, he's a 7-year-old, and this horse, I've been changing leads on this horse since he was 3. But the lead change has always been, it's a beautiful lead change, but it always has been a tougher horse to teach to change leads. He's just nervous about it. And of course, the left to right is the tougher lead change. So that was the lead change we had in this pattern. But we worked hard on it, and Dan has gotten much more comfortable with it and confident in it. The biggest thing was being confident that the lead change is going to be there and to ride through it confidently. So we knew the lead change was one of our weaknesses. But when the lead change is good, it's great. He has a beautiful lead change. And then probably our spins. His horse is a timid horse, and there's a fine line between having him turn fast and having him turn a little erratic. So we worked on really correct turns. Those are probably our 2 areas that we knew we could really do, but we had to prepare properly for them.
And so now we've left home. We're at the horse show. We've made the finals, and we're a day out from the finals or whatever it is, and we have this pattern in front of us. Different people I know approach their finals preparation in different ways. Did you practice in the arena? Like, he obviously had some marks that he was hitting. Did you guys talk about those? Did Dan figure them out on his own? How do you prepare to go in that arena for that finals performance a day out?
So yeah, we have Dan and I have been working together long enough. We have a very chill, mellow system for preparing for these big classes. We usually come in the middle of the night when there's almost no one around, and we usually walk through it or jog through the whole pattern, pausing where there's a pause, turning where there's a turn, and knowing where all of our transitions or stops or maneuvers are going to occur. So we did that first, and then again we put the whole pattern together, but we didn't use our best run up in the practice pin. We saved our best run for the final. So we had a solid plan and we took our time.
So how do you save your best run? That's got to take some practice.
For sure. Well, we do a lot of dry runs. Like we came to that lead change area where we knew his horse could possibly be nervous. Instead of changing there every time, we softened his horse through there and relaxed his horse through there. And then we knew the extending lope was one of Dan's best maneuvers. His horse just extends the lope beautifully. Dan sits him really well. So we really practiced just getting solid in those big circles and the extended lopes, and but not, maybe not spinning too much. We didn't overdo the turning and we didn't overdo the lead change.
So you don't go from the beginning to the end full speed over and over and over doing this pattern. Basically, what I'm gathering from what you're saying is you really didn't do it full speed until you went in the show pen. All the other times was just trying to keep your horse soft and quiet and calm and relaxed. Yeah,
for sure. I'm big on that on everything I show, and I try to leave my best run for in the show pen. So we pushed the limits, we practiced it, but we didn't practice it as a whole. Just like I want to see exactly what it looks like in the show pen. We didn't do that.
I understood. Great words of wisdom, no doubt. Well, let's can we go back and maybe watch it one more time and have you critique Dan and his horse and tell us the positive traits that you're seeing, and then even if there's something that we weren't ready for that spot and Dan handled it well or whatever. So we'll go back and watch it one more time.
So for Dan and I, we knew we wanted to set ourselves apart, I wanted Dan to set himself apart from the rest of the class from the start. So this walk, which was a forward walk, we really concentrated on getting into a big walk and having a nice big step, and then moving smoothly into the extended trot. And again, Dan's horse has a big extended trot, and he can sit it really well. So this first part, I told him, you got to separate yourself right here from the start to make the judges sit up and think, hey, this guy wants to win this. So he trotted up there. I was really happy with that. Had nice, solid, pretty consistent turns. Stayed really correct in them. Good lope out. Like I said, Dan sits his horse well. He moves his transitions from his slow lope to an extended lope are always very smooth, but I wanted them to be I wanted it to happen promptly. I didn't want it to be sticky because it showed it. So he moved right into an extended lope. And this was the tricky part for us because we had to collect, but you also had to build back up for the lead change on his horse. And Dan did a great job on that. He collected on the corner, and then he pushed up for his lead change and had a really big, beautiful lead change. And then he went right back into his extended lope.
And Charlie, when I watch this video and I see you telling me a little bit like you were a little worried about the lead change and you used more cautious words there earlier on, and boy, Dan seemed to kind of just use that effortlessly. Like he hit, if that was a problem area for you, he hit it really well.
Well, we've worked hard on it, and like I said, if he would have come back too slow there, or not rode back up to the lead change and set his horse up well, that could have been a disaster. But he rode it just right, and the horse responded exactly how he wanted. So I was really happy with that. Then he moved around the top in his extended lope. He showed that part off well, collected well, coming down the middle. He's lucky. His horse is a really good mover. Nice horse to ride. The horse is quiet. Had a good spin to the right. I'd like that spin in a perfect world to be faster, but we know the limits of his horse at this point, and we just decided to have a solid spin there. This horse has a great backup. Dan showed. I said show off that backup, so he did. And then again, he gets to finish with an extended trot, which Dan sits that so well, and he stops really well at the end. So I was happy. Our only two concerns were the lead change, and I think he for sure plus that, and then that right spin. And if we just zeroed that, I knew it would be okay. Maybe he plus halved it. But either way, the biggest thing was to get through it without a mistake.
So Charlie, you're judging or you're coaching or whatever your horsemanship. Tell us just some basic things that you're after out of your horse rider combination to have a great performance.
Well, you said the right words. For me, I always want a connection between the horse and rider. I don't want riders that are just propped up there. I want riders that are effective. If something's not going right, I want to see how a rider handles it and to make it work. And so I'm always trying to teach my riders how to be horsemen and how to be riders, not just props up there. So that's the number one thing for me.
And Dan looks like he does a great job of that. The one thing that I take from watching this pattern that really stood out to me was his cadence and his fluidness throughout the entire thing. Even with the speed changes, I didn't really see a lot of hesitations at any point. Like everything just flowed beautifully and cadenced. And as you pointed out, Dan's connection was outstanding. So thank you, Charlie, for your time and for critiquing the run and kind of giving us a little insight into how you prep your rider Dan and his horse to reach the top levels of competition.
Well, thanks for having me. Yes, horsemanship is definitely one of my passions. It always has been, and I'm lucky to get to work with such great horses and riders and make a living out of it.